I'm Miles Christian, and you are watching The Whiskey Report.
Miles Christian is a fucking asshole, and I don't care who knows it.
On today's episode, I'm going to be talking about the Democratic primary of 2018 for Wisconsin governor, better known as the Democratic shit show. Since the beginning of 2017, over 20 candidates from across the state announced that they were going to run for governor of Wisconsin as a Democrat. These included people like former state senator Tim Cullen, former state representative Brett Halsey, and over a half dozen people who had no experience in political politics at all. So let's go through some of these candidates. First, we have Tim Cullen, the state senator who was part of what was known as the Fab 14. He was seen as the least trustworthy of any of the state senators of the Democratic Party by many of those activists involved in the state capitol. Tim Cullen even threatened to leave the Democratic Party at one point because they wouldn't put him on a committee that he wanted. He was a lobbyist for Blue Cross Blue Shield and wanted to be on a committee that directly oversaw issues related to hospitals in Wisconsin. Tim Cullen was the first to announce that he would be running for governor and the first to drop out.
Are you exploring the idea of a campaign?
I'm going to be in the race before the end of January.
Okay.
More than exploring, I work at it every day of the week.
And what issues will you be pushing as part of your campaign?
Well, part of it will be to try to restore some of the horrible things that Governor Walker's done in Wisconsin. And how much of that I get done will depend on whether the legislature is Democrat or not. But then I think our economic development plans are lunacy. We should be helping start-up companies and people with new ideas. That's where the jobs are, instead of just giving money to people that give campaign contributions.
Brett Halsey, who ran in 2014 and lost terribly to Mary Burke, is a man deep in controversy. The man was charged with disorderly conduct when he got in a fight with a child at a local beach, then claimed it was some sort of wild conspiracy by the mayor to get him in trouble. Brett Halsey is now a landlord in Madison, Wisconsin, buying up rundown houses, not taking care of the houses.
The former state assemblyman turned lobbyist is buying up houses on Madison's east side and having poor and homeless people work on these houses and then not paying them for the work they do.
Behind me is one of the houses that Brett Halsey is now renting out. And from what I've been told is the workers working on these houses are not being paid for the hours they're working. The houses are not up to code, and Brett is not even having the basic needs like hot water. You've become a landlord.
Hi Miles, how are you? Happy Labor Day.
You've become a landlord.
I'm providing affordable housing, yes Miles.
Yes. And are you paying your workers?
Miles, I will,
Are you paying your workers?
I pay workers, yes.
Yes. Are you not paying people that you are employing?
Miles, I'll talk.
See, Brett, there's people who claim that you haven't paid them for work that they've done on these houses.
Miles, I'm working this out.
And a list of controversies around that man, but he's since dropped out of the race. And in fact, there were over 5-6 different candidates who I said were running but didn't have any political experience at all. Now, these candidates got very little, if no coverage at all, from state and local media. On top of it, they didn't really do much to make an online presence with what is out there that they could have used. So a deadline came up earlier this year that you had to have over 2,000 signatures in order to be on the ballot for governor in the state of Wisconsin. So, at that time, it came down to 10 candidates. Since then, 2 of them have dropped out. So really quickly, I'm going to go through the 2 that dropped out of the race. First was State Representative Dana Wachs. Now, he got the endorsement of many of the Democratic state assemblymen across the state, including the endorsement of one of the Milwaukee Bucks executives. Now, it just turns out that Dana Wachs also voted for the Milwaukee Bucks arena, and I had the chance to ask him about that last year.
Where did you stand on the Milwaukee Bucks arena, and did you?
I supported the Milwaukee Bucks arena, and I did that because public-private partnerships make a lot of sense. In Eau Claire, we have the Confluence Center, which has taken our downtown with public-private partnerships. Eau Claire's downtown is, I don't know if you've been there recently, but it's a new downtown. We have economic prosperity from that. I think in the Milwaukee Bucks, it was a no-brainer in terms of legislating. So get more money with tax revenue per year by having the Bucks here than not. Plus, there's a tremendous infrastructure.
But what about the fact that that money came from the University of Wisconsin?
It didn't. It did not come from the university. In fact, there was more money for our education by supporting the Bucks. Our tax revenues statewide went up by having the Milwaukee Bucks not play.
So we cut hundreds of millions of dollars from the University of Wisconsin system?
That's a separate issue. I'm against these cuts, and I think you know it. If you know anything about my record, I was the ranking Democrat on colleges and universities. I have fought the cuts that Walker had on K through 12, technical colleges and universities. We want new industry. We should be investing in our universities. That's where it's not just new jobs; it's entire new industry.
So you don't see a connection between cutting $300 million from the UW system and putting $250 million into the Bucks arena in the same month?
Well, it wasn't part of the budget. It was a different bill, and it wasn't. You're mislabeling. It's not the same bill. It was a different bill.
But didn't we cut $300 million from the university?
Walker did.
Right. But you did put that money into the Bucks arena.
No, there's a difference between the budget and regular legislation. So you're conflating the two. It's not the same. But thank you. I didn't catch your name.
The next person who has already dropped out is Andy Gronick, a very wealthy businessman from the Milwaukee area. And I actually ran into Andy up at University of Stout randomly when I was walking through the area with my camera. Tried to ask him some questions, but he didn't want to answer my questions.
And what do you think about the Bucks arena?
What do I think about it? Well, the Bucks have to have a place to play basketball, and that decision's already been made.
Yeah. Do you think it was wrong for the Democrats to vote to use taxpayer dollars on it?
Tell me a little bit more about who you are.
I'm a journalist from Madison, asking questions. Just randomly ran into you. But you don't want to answer that question.
No, it's not that I don't want to answer your questions. I just want to know a little bit more about you.
Well, I run a YouTube page called Wisconsin International Radio. Just happened to be here in town today.
Great, us too.
Yeah.
All right, well listen, thanks for your interest.
I had the chance to ask Andy Gronick those same questions again earlier this year at a marijuana march, and he still didn't want to answer any questions.
A few months ago.
Oh, that was you.
Yeah.
Okay, great. It's good to see you again.
Yeah. No, I was trying to ask you about the Bucks arena.
All right, man. Thank you.
You didn't want to talk about that at that time. Okay. Hi, I'm Andy Gronick. I'm blah, 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 blah.
How do you grow marijuana? In an agricultural state, right? Okay, so let's grow a strong business. Let's regulate it and tax it properly. Let's benefit from those kinds of revenue.
Good to see you.
Andy, have you ever smoked cannabis?
You'd like to follow me with that.
I mean, if you can't handle answering my questions, how are you going to handle Walker? Huh?
So now we're down to 8 candidates still in the race. So let's go through some of those candidates who are still running for governor of Wisconsin as a Democrat. First, we have Senator Kathleen Vinehound. She ran in the recall election of 2012 and lost. Then she ran in 2016 2014 for a very short period of time, but bowed out. Then we have a candidate named Josh Pade, or Pat. No one's ever really heard of him before this election.
Wisconsin.
Yes, I will support whoever the nominee is, and I think if we win, it's because I was nominated. But more importantly, when you look at the military or in the private sector, when something doesn't work, you do an after action. You understand why isn't this working and how can we do it different. And I got into this race because I was tired of seeing an election where the Republicans owned the agenda, where we were just responding to where they were taking our state, and it was constantly taken in a direction that does not help working families. So I want to bring new ideas and a new vision, and that's how we're going to win.
Next, we have Matt Flynn, who I had the chance to interview and has been pretty strong on the issue of legalization of marijuana. At the time that I did the interview, I didn't know about the rather horrible history of Matt Flynn. I did the interview with him the same day as that marijuana march where I talked to Andy Gronick and talked to Matt Flynn about marijuana. A week later, the story broke out about how Matt Flynn, when working as a lawyer in the 90s, did work for the Archdiocese. And according to the Wisconsin Gazette, he did some rather horrible things to the victims in trying to get the priests out of trouble. Included things like trying to move priests out of the area without them facing repercussions, trying to intimidate the victims, just monstrous, horrible things that have been done by this candidate for governor. And in fact, other candidates in the race have asked for him to drop out, as well as a few different groups. Then we have Kelda Roys, the former state representative from the Madison area, who ran for Congress against Mark Pocan in the Democratic primary and lost. Kelda Roys was a huge supporter of Hillary Clinton and hasn't really done much since leaving the assembly a few years ago. Now we got Mike McCabe, Mike McCabe was involved in activism for decades in this area and involved in investigative journalism. He's not exactly your typical Democrat. He is very progressive in the truest sense of the word. And while some might disagree with Mike McCabe on his economic policies, which include universal basic income and other policies like minimum wage, Mike McCabe is someone at least of character enough that he's willing to discuss issues with non-Democrats. I had the chance to interview Mike McCabe alongside the Libertarian candidate last year at the Madison Harvest Festival.
We're good, friendly politicians.
And then you both, okay, you're running as a Libertarian, you're running as a Democrat. I think this is a good expression of free and open debate, would you say?
But on an issue that we agree on, though, right?
Yeah, we're not gonna see eye to eye on everything, but on this, the war on drugs has been a miserable failure, and it's driving mass incarceration. It's driving
exactly. This is just the first step in a process of criminal justice reform that includes getting rid of mandatory minimum sentencing, jury nullification, pardoning, expunging records, and people having the right to vote before they're off paper.
Absolutely.
We're in complete agreement on this. If either one of us were elected governor, if it had to not be me, I'd prefer that it be Mike for these reasons, actually, because we see eye to eye on a lot of things involving corruption and money and politics. We disagree on economics quite drastically, I believe, but on these issues, on issues of people being represented and people's liberties and freedoms being protected, we agree wholeheartedly, especially in this process that we're looking at.
Absolutely, absolutely.
You couldn't have said it better yourself.
Well said, my friend. Yeah.
One more question.
And honestly, Mike McCabe might be one of the strongest candidates to go against Scott Walker. Now, the leading candidate at the moment is Tony Evers. He has been polling the best. He is the state superintendent of public instruction. And Tony Evers is also very good about answering questions. Every time I've come up on the night of the recall election, Tom Barrett and Mahlon Mitchell threw in the towel and conceded to Scott Walker while citizens were still in line to vote. This upset many people, and you could even hear people in the crowds screaming, "Let the votes be counted," and then another Democrat yelling, "Shut up." Tom Barrett conceded to Scott Walker, and within moments of that, Mahlon Mitchell went up on stage to claim that this wasn't over and that he was going to help Barack Obama get reelected.
But I'm going to tell you right now, I will not stop fighting. I'm going to fight like hell. I know I curse and my kids are behind me. But I'm going to fight like hell to make sure that we elect Barack Obama in 2012 and keep fighting.
Obama really had nothing to do with the protests of 2011 and 2012 in the sense that there was a difference between the battle going on in Wisconsin and the re-election of Obama. And Mahlon Mitchell used the union protest as an opportunity to promote Obama when really, if anything, Americans' dislike of Obama is probably one of the reasons why Scott Walker did so well for so long. And on top of that, Mahlon Mitchell might best be known for his thank you letter to Scott Walker in 2011, where he was thanking Scott Walker for leaving the firefighters out of the collective bargaining bill known as Act 10. Now to number 8. Possibly one of the shittiest candidates to be running for governor of Wisconsin. My mayor, Paul Soglin. This wretched piece of shit, Paul Soglin. At one time, Paul Soglin was a socialist mayor of Madison. And 30, 40 years later, he has turned into the epitome of everything he once fought against. He raged against the machine, and now he is the machine. Paul Soglin, this crusty old curmudgeon, this idiot who is the mayor who I pay my property taxes to. This disgusting, selfish, despicable old man who is just a terrible, terrible fucking mayor and wants to be governor. Where do we even start with what a piece of shit Paul Soglin is? Well, how about 2 years ago when they had a policy of no sitting? That's right. The Madison police were instructed to ticket the poor and homeless $439 for sitting on a stone slab of concrete next to a planting area. They had round-the-clock police presence to ticket poor and homeless people $439 for sitting. Now, these tickets were not being given out to tourists or your average middle-class people. Specifically, poor, homeless people, predominantly those of color, were being ticketed $439. And on the other side of the sidewalk, 3-4 feet away, you can also be ticketed now for trespassing if you are leaning against that wall. However, you can come out any Saturday morning and the business right next to it will be having tables and chairs leaned against the wall. So
tables and chairs essentially have more rights than people in the city of Madison. Myself and my good friend Michael Walton organized a protest of this to bring awareness. And even some cops in the Madison Police Department disagree with this policy, and some have even refused to give out tickets for this ridiculous policy. And it seems that the policy has now been left up to the officer's discretion. So some might ticket people for this, others might not. Now, there was another policy that Paul Soglin introduced right around that same time where he tried to make it illegal to sit on a city bench for more than an hour. How are you going to police that? Are you going to have people walking around measuring how long people have been sitting on a bench? Around that same time, the Madison city started putting in these little bars on the benches to make sure that no one's lying down on a bench. Paul Soglin's policies as mayor over the last decade have been extremely anti-homeless. He has attempted to ship them out of town at one point. At one point he wanted to make the city Capitol Square and State Street a city park so that he could have greater control over the area. And then you can make all sorts of rules. Say the park is closed. Tell people they have to be out of the park by certain times.
Would you have a minute to explain what it means to turn the Capitol Square and State Street into a city park?
I would, but I've got someone waiting for me.
Okay.
Just walk away. You can put a stop to all this. Just walk away.
He's pretty good.
Last year when I found out that Paul Soglin was running for governor, I told him, before you run for governor, maybe you should stop attacking the poor and homeless. Paul Soglin walked up and told me to go fuck myself.
Okay. Well, you just told me to go fuck myself.
So?
Unfortunately, I only had a small GoPro camera that had a 5-second delay to turn on. And so as he walked up to me, I was turning on the camera. Right then he told me to go fuck myself. And I got the immediate aftermath, at least getting him to admit that he told me to go fuck myself.
You expect me to stay here and be silent?
You just told me to go F myself?
Yeah.
Why would you tell me to go F myself?
Because you don't know what you're talking about and you're being honest in front of all these people.
Well, I just said before you become governor, can you stop attacking the poor and homeless?
Who do I attack?
The poor and homeless of Madison.
What did the mayor of Madison just tell me to do?
The mayor just told this very polite man to go fuck himself.
No, Paul Soglin, you can go fuck yourself. What was really hilarious is that when Paul Soglin first announced that he was running for governor, nearly every single comment on his Facebook thread was, "Oh God, Paul, please do not run. Paul, please, by God, do not run." Nearly 80% of the comments that people placed on his post about running for governor were citizens of Madison telling him, do not run. I could go on for hours about how bad Paul Soglin's policies are towards the homeless. They're double standards. You know, you can see people who are on a pedicab drinking, they get off of the pedicab, they've got their drink in hand, they'll be stopping and taking a photo with the Capitol in the background, whereas people 20 feet away in the opposite direction crack open a beer, and there are literally camcorders in a Big Brother sort of fashion watching these people, and patrol cars will be sent out, as many as 4 or 5 squad cars for something as simple as people drinking. And this goes on all the time in Madison, and people just turn a blind eye to it. So let's get into some of the other policies of Paul Soglin. There is the strong possibility
most definite possibility that the F-35 project will be coming to Madison Truex, our Air National Guard base. And last year I had the chance to ask Paul Soglin about the possibility of eminent domain going on in order for the military base to expand. If the F-35 comes and the military base needs to expand its territory for more track for the F-35 project, there is the strong possibility that homes and apartments in the area might need to be demolished, in which case eminent domain is a real possibility. And the mayor, completely unaware of that.
What do you think about the F-35 coming to Madison?
What?
The F-35 coming to Madison, and the fact that eminent domain might be used in the process?
I don't know anything about eminent domain.
Well, the fact that they want to bring the F-35 to Madison, Wisconsin, and that eminent domain would have to be used to expand the military base.
I didn't know that. Are you sure of that?
They would have to expand the military base in order to bring the F-35, because it would require more track, basically.
I have not heard that up until your mention.
Here I am, Mayor.
I don't know.
Hey, Paul, are we going to do this here?
Yeah. That's your candidate for governor.
While Paul Soglin was collecting his signatures for governor, I ran into him in the city of Stoughton and asked him about the new police center, which is going to cost us tens of millions of dollars. He didn't even know which police center I was talking about at first. And when I asked him about the different branches of law enforcement that patrol the city of Madison, Paul Soglin is under the impression that only one branch of law enforcement patrols Madison.
Well, what do you think about that new police center? It's going to cost $40 million.
Which one is that?
The new police station on the west side.
Oh, the Midwest one? Well, I wish that the council had postponed it for a couple of years. I think in terms of timing, they acted prematurely. But long term, we needed it.
Okay. Was Fidel Castro?
Why do you think that's an important issue?
It's a lot of money. It costs a lot. It costs a lot of money to the taxpayers of the town, doesn't it?
You wouldn't want to fund the police department?
No, I just don't know if they needed a new police station. They have so many already.
But what is so many? I mean, we got the central, south, west, east, and north. How do you determine what's so many?
I mean, how many branches of law enforcement do we have in Madison?
Well, the city of Madison has one, the Madison Police Department.
The Capitol Police.
That's the Capitals.
How many different branches of law enforcement patrol Madison?
The Madison Police Department is the only one. The Capitol Police patrol state government businesses. The University Police patrols the campus.
Paul Soglin's completely wrong on this issue, and I recently talked with the chief of the UW Police, and she openly talked about the fact that the University of Wisconsin Police have statewide authority and patrol all over the Madison area.
What is your opinion of the UW-PD arresting people off of the UW campus?
As in whether or not we should have the ability to do that, or?
Well, for instance, like UW-PD operating on South Park Street, for instance.
Okay, well, essentially the officers with the UW-PD are authorized just as any other police officer in the state would be. So typically, we have our primary area of coverage and jurisdiction and focus, which is obviously the campus community, but we certainly will help out our partners at the city or Capitol PD or even with the county as needed.
You see, if you were driving in the city of Madison, and let's say you had a headlight out, or you were speeding, there are 5 different branches of law enforcement that could pull you over anywhere at any time. Those include the Dane County Sheriff's Department, Madison Police, the University of Wisconsin Police Department, the Capitol Police, and the State Troopers. On top of that, there are another 30 branches of law enforcement in the Dane County area that can also pull you over and arrest you if needed. And recently I even saw a Sun Prairie police officer on State Street arresting someone. That's because every single small municipality, be it Fitchburg, Middleton, Nona, all the small towns and municipalities have been granted the countywide deputization. So there's plenty of law enforcement in the city of Madison. But that's another issue that we can go into deeper on another episode. While talking to Paul Soglin, I had the chance to ask him about his support of Fidel Castro, which he denied.
So this is going to be the difficult question that somebody might bring up in the election because of the Fidel Castro photo.
What about it?
Was Fidel Castro an anti-gay dictator?
He was. He was. In fact, that's one of the issues that we raised while we were there, was their political suppression on political dissidents and on gays.
So you disagreed with him at the time when you met him?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe there's a big misconception there.
Where's the misconception?
Well, some people think that photo of you with Fidel Castro, you look supportive of him.
Just because we're in a photo together and acting, if you don't mind the word, diplomatically, doesn't mean that we agreed on every issue.
Now, Paul Soglin can say he disagreed with Fidel Castro. The only thing that doesn't make any sense then is why did he give Fidel Castro the key to the city of Madison? To sum it up, Paul Soglin is a piece of shit mayor, and he would be a piece of shit governor, possibly even worse than Scott Walker. Under Paul Soglin, we have seen a horrible gentrification of the city of Madison for many, many years. And in the last 3-4 years, it's gotten incredibly worse. And this doesn't just affect poor people or the students, it also affects businesses. The property taxes are going up everywhere. And be it a fancy martini bar or a small restaurant, we're seeing one thing after another leaving downtown, leaving State Street, and there's gentrification going on all over the city. Everything is being torn down to be a hotel or a apartment complex. It doesn't make any sense. It's not good for local business. Paul Soglin has been a terrible mayor, and I don't even know where to stop with Paul Soglin being so shitty. Now let's take a quick look at the Democratic primary for lieutenant governor. Originally, those included 3 candidates. Former State Representative Mandela Barnes, a guy by the name of Kurt Kober, who originally ran for governor, but then realized that's going to be a crowded field and probably made the right choice in running for lieutenant governor. And lastly, a young man by the name of William Henry Davis III. Now, William Henry Davis III, I had the chance to sit down with a couple times and interview. And William Henry Davis is somebody who truly cares about the poor, the homeless, the elderly, and I think someday will make a great politician, which is very rare for me to say. I had the chance to sit down with William Henry Davis and talk to him about a variety of issues, and he is somebody who is not a polished politician. He has a big heart, and he cares, and unfortunately, he got screwed by the Democratic Party, being somebody with not a lot of money, not a lot of experience. They completely ignored him. But not just the Democratic Party. The media completely ignored the fact that this man was running for lieutenant governor. When there was over 20 candidates running for governor and only 3 candidates running for lieutenant governor, there's no reason why they couldn't have given equal coverage to these 3 men for the lieutenant governor race. It's pretty much expected that Mandela will be the candidate for lieutenant governor because Mandela was a former state rep and Mandela has the connections. Now, Kurt Kober, not sure what he does, not sure who he is. All we know about him is that he is from Wisconsin originally, spent many years living out in California, it seems. Has had fundraisers out in California, first for running for governor, then now having fundraisers in California to run for lieutenant governor. William Henry Davis did not get the 2,000 signatures he needed, and so it is down to Kurt Kober versus Mandela Barnes for lieutenant governor in this primary, Democratic primary that is. Mandela Barnes. Not sure where to start about Mandela Barnes. I first met Mandela Barnes when he was a intern, volunteer, something for Jesse Jackson back in 2011. And knew him, liked him, seemed like a great guy.
Should Wisconsin taxpayers pay for a Bucks arena?
You want to ask me in a different setting?
Should the Wisconsin taxpayers have to pay for the Bucks arena?
You ask me in a different setting?
In a different setting?
Yep.
What do you mean different setting?
If you want to act like this, that's cool, but, you know, do what you want to do.
You did vote for it.
I voted for it. Yes, I did vote for it. Thank you very much.
You're a politician, you're at the state capitol, I'm a taxpayer, I've got a camera, and I want to ask you why you voted to give my tax dollars away. Simple concept, but he didn't want to answer the questions, so I walked away. Luckily, the CCTV footage from the Madison Police Department caught what happened afterwards. I walked away from the Capitol, ended up actually sitting down on the stone slab of concrete and talking to one of my homeless friends, and then proceeded to walk down State Street. At which point Mandela Barnes popped out of a local business, ran up to me, stopped me, and told me, quote, "If you ever embarrass me like that again, I will fuck you up." Baffled, I started to turn on my camera, and I just smiled and slowly started to point the camcorder at his face, at which point he pushed both me and the camera with his hand in front of several witnesses. Everybody saw it, and he ran away. And I talked to the police who walked by, and I told them exactly what happened. And while I didn't press charges or file an official complaint, Madison police have it on record, and that's how I was able to obtain that CCTV footage. When Mandela Barnes announced that he was going to run for lieutenant governor, a spokesman from the Republican Party found the YouTube video and brought it up. Mandela Barnes said that they were engaging in race baiting and trying to portray the image of a scary black man, when really race had absolutely nothing to do with this situation. It's a citizen asking a politician about their vote, and that politician threatening the citizen. It's as simple as that. And about 2 years later, I ran into that same politician, Mandela Barnes, at a political forum where people were filming and politicians were on stage answering questions. And I tried to ask him one more time. He was very upset, looked away, and then my camcorder was ripped out of my hands by his friend, Daniel Reamer, who physically took my camcorder out of my hands, laughed, and refused to give me my camera back. But that's another story for another day. So, that's the Democratic primary. Mandela Barnes will most likely be the lieutenant governor candidate. If Tony Evers or whoever becomes the candidate of the Democratic Party, what will soon happen is that the Democratic Leadership Institute types, the picture-perfect, chipper little Democrats will take over, and it will no longer in any way be a grassroots campaign. What will most likely happen, no matter who becomes the candidate, is that many Democratic interns from around the country will come into Wisconsin and be in charge of the campaign. They will not know the area, they will not know the people, they will not knock doors, they will not go out and get votes. What has happened repeatedly for the last 7-8 years now is that they have these campaigns and they bring in these children from across the country who know nothing about Wisconsin, and even on the night of Mary Burke's election in 2014, the kids were more interested in finding booze and glow sticks than actually getting votes out for Mary Burke. It's hilarious. And the Democratic Party of Wisconsin is a waste of time. No matter if they decide to go with a strong candidate or not, chances are the Democratic Party of Wisconsin will mess it up because their volunteers are too old to know what they're doing, and the other volunteers are a bunch of young, chipper people who have no idea what they're doing at all. And everybody in their 30s and 40s is just the people getting money for the party and not actually doing any work. So the Democratic Party will totally screw this thing up in the end, and Scott Walker will probably get reelected. And what's really sad is that the 5 candidates running as non-Democrats and also running against Scott Walker will not get any coverage. There is a Republican primary that no one is hearing about. A man by the name of Robert Meyer is running against Scott Walker. There is the Green Party candidate. There is the Libertarian Party candidate. There are 2 other independent candidates, one for something called the Wisconsin Party and a woman who is a scientist and well qualified who is running as an independent. 5 candidates running against Walker who are not part of the Democratic primary, and they're getting next to no coverage, and that is the Wisconsin governor's race. And in the end, Walker is very likely to get reelected. Fucking A. ...2017 Senate Bill 61. This fucking thing right here. The long and short of this bill right here is that the Republicans of the state of Wisconsin decided to end a portion of civil asset forfeiture. Now, what civil asset forfeiture is, in the shortest words to describe it as possible, is basically that the government can steal your property because you have either committed a crime or have been suspected of committing a crime. Now, what this bill in the state of Wisconsin specifically did was to say that it was going to limit civil asset forfeiture to only those who have been convicted of a crime. This is actually a good bill. It doesn't go far enough, it doesn't do enough, but this was a step in the right direction, saying that people who have not been convicted of a crime cannot have their money and possessions taken away by the state. I'm sure that the federal government will still be able to do this in a federal charge, but someone's pulled over. They've got $500 in their car, maybe they had some weed, who knows. The government could take their belongings. And now, it used to be that even if they hadn't been charged with a crime, even if they hadn't committed a crime, the government, the state government for that matter, could take somebody's money even theoretically take somebody's car. It's a multi-billion-dollar industry in this country of civil asset forfeiture. What this bill specifically did was limit it to only people convicted of crime. And it was a good bill, and it did pass. But who voted against this bill? Only Democrats. Only Democrats voted against this bill. Some of those included Senator Hansen, Senator Erpenbach, the Democratic Minority Leader Schillings, Schratner, who was just elected to the state senate, Risser, who is the state senator of Madison, Vinehout, who is running for governor, and Lena Taylor. All of the individuals, all 10 of the individuals who voted against this bill to limit civil asset forfeiture were Democrats. All 10. I pronounce their names wrong, but fuck it. Bewley, Carpenter, Erpenbach, Hansen, Reinhand, Risser, Schratner, Schilling, Taylor, and Vinehout. All 10 of these state senators for the Democratic Party voted against this bill. They voted essentially to allow the sheriff's departments, the police departments, to continue to take people's things who have not been convicted of a crime. I disagree with the Republicans on so much, and was very active in protesting all of the Republicans of this state for a very long time. But if they're going to do a good bill that's good for the people, I'll appreciate that. And so it pisses me the fuck off when Democrats vote against policies like that. Finally, I want to talk tonight about the immigration debate in America, specifically the horrible policies that Donald Trump has been making a lot of news about the separation of families. This is terrible, and to call out the fact that another political party did the same exact thing is not to defend the Trump administration anyway. Alright, fuck the Trump administration. Blah, blah, blah. Fuck the Trump administration. There, I said it, okay? I also don't like the Democrats because they do the same damn thing. When Obama was president, families were also being separated. It might not have been at the border, though there's evidence to say there was families separated at the border. He for sure separated families when they were being deported from various states. Obama deported more immigrants than all presidents before him. And your average Democrat was completely complacent with it. Barack Obama was known as the deporter-in-chief by many. And it was really only the socialists and the libertarians who ever mentioned it. And that's great that Democrats and liberals in America are finally starting to be more pro-immigrant. But something really messed up about the fact that in 2008 they used Si Se Puede as a chant, and they got people to vote for them based on that issue along with a lot of other issues. But while Obama was in, he was deporting people all the time on an excessive level. At the same time, when less and less people are actually immigrating into this country. And people turned a blind eye to Obama's horrible immigration policies. And now in 2018, we're supposed to believe that if people just elect Democrats, that that's going to somehow change the terrible immigration policies. Republicans and Democrats have more alike when it comes to immigration than what separates them. And lastly, we talk about families getting separated in the United States. What about the black families that are separated by the government every day? Black fathers put in jail for non-violent drug offenses. Every day in America, we've got families being separated by the government. It's not just immigrant families being separated. Families of all color, all race, all creed are being separated by the government for a lot of reasons. Non-violent drug offenses. You've got financial reasons. Mothers and fathers put in jail in this country every single day that don't need to be put in prison. And so, enough of this blue-red bullshit, okay? Stop thinking that just because the red team sucks, or the blue team sucks, that makes the blue or red team better. It's bullshit. And I'm not just gonna advocate that you should vote for a particular party that I like. Okay, let's create a third party, let's create a fourth party, let's have a fifth party, and then let's form some coalitions that, coalitions of people of different backgrounds, people of different ideologies coming together. We need that. We need people of different political spectrums working together on the issues we agree. And if we do that, we can see better policies when it comes to immigration. We can see the dissolvement of this war on drugs that we see. We can end mass incarceration. We can stop wasting tax dollars on bombing and killing, and maybe give some of those tax dollars back to the own communities. I think one issue that people on so many spectrums can agree on is the localization of government, that more decisions need to be made by the citizens through referendum. Decisions need to be made on a more local level than a state or federal level, bringing aspects of the federal government down to the state level and bringing aspects of the state government down to a local level. Or you can continue voting to shift the paradigm back to blue and red, and fuck it, you know, but I just want to say fuck the Democrats and Republicans. And, yeah, thanks for watching.
Miles Kristen is a fucking asshole, and I don't care who knows it.